Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, June 3rd, 2022, and today we're going to be talking about the 2022 Senate elections for this November. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, so I'm going to go ahead and move away from a traditional analysis style video and try something a little bit new. We're going to be using a magic 8 ball to actually predict all of the Senate races within the November election. So we have 35 races here. The way we're going to do it is work with the incumbent party. So for example, in North Dakota, we are going to ask the magic 8 ball, will Republicans win the Senate race in North Dakota this year? And the answer there will result in a filled-in map. So we're going to move across 35 different parts of the country, and it's going to be quite interesting. So I apologize if this is not what you expected, but I can't think really clearly right now, so we're going to go ahead and just proceed with this. So we'll start off on the West Coast, move over to the East Coast because things might get a little bit more interesting. I don't expect this to be accurate. This obviously is not a projection, and it's just something that we're doing for fun because we've had 2,000 plus videos now that are strictly focused on analysis. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the first question, I actually used Pennsylvania as the template here, but let's go ahead and use California because that's more accurate. There's an incumbent Democrat in California right now, and let's go ahead and ask the question. Shaking the magic 8 ball, and the answer is... better not tell you now. Okay, we're going to do it again until we actually get a finalized response, but generally, I think that it would be surprising if they didn't, but outlook not so good is enough for me to characterize it as a Republican state. Let's move up the amount here. Let's go ahead and head it over to the state of Oregon, if I can actually spell it correctly. Sorry if you can hear my typing too. It's right by my microphone, but makes sense. I don't know why it's being so unwilling to tell me the answers right away, but let's go ahead and see. Cannot predict now. Kind of weird. Oregon, Washington, please give me an answer. Ask again later. What is going on with this magic 8 ball? It seems as if it doesn't want to tell me the answer. Okay, so Democrats are going to win in the state of Oregon. That's not the right color. Let's move over to the state of Washington. I promise you, I at least hope it doesn't take this much longer as we go through the remainder of the states. Concentrate and ask again, what is going on with this magic 8 ball? So the answer is... it is decidedly so. So that's going to be a characterization for the Democratic Party. Let's move over to the Republicans, actually. I want to see if we're going to get a Republican victory. Will Republicans win the Senate race in Idaho? This shouldn't be too difficult to see in reality, but maybe the magic 8 ball has other plans, without a doubt. So makes sense. The map seems to be a little bit more accurate than we expected. We also have Utah. Now, this is interesting because Evan McConnell is running in this race. He's running against a Republican. Democrats are not putting up a candidate here. So if it was to go another way, we would have to say, oh, looks like technically speaking, it goes to a different political party. So we'll come back to that one right by the end of the video, but we can go ahead and characterize it as Republican light, just simply because it looks as if Evan McConnell is guaranteed to caucus with the GOP. So balance of power really shouldn't change if that was to be different. So will Democrats win the Senate race in the state of Nevada? It's quite interesting to see what the magic 8 ball tells us. Yes. Okay. Democrats are for sure certain to win in Nevada. We haven't had that many apprehensive yeses for the Democratic Party. Nothing that says maybe so, maybe likely. It says, as I see it in Arizona, yes. So we're characterizing it. Surprisingly enough, we're getting at least matching to where my current expectations are in the U.S. Senate, obviously beyond the state of California. It says outlook not so good. So I'm going to characterize that again as a likely GOP state. So that brings us to 33 Republican states, Democrats at 40. Let's go ahead and hit Alaska really quickly. The state of Alaska. Will Republicans win the Senate race in Alaska? Asking the question, magic 8 ball says, I better not say asking later, my sources say no. So it looks like Democrats might actually hold that one out. Interesting enough because the top two contenders there are, of course, Republicans, Kelly Tshibaka and Lisa Murkowski. But, of course, crazier things happen. And also, it's a magic 8 ball. It's not an election prediction. In the state of Hawaii, that one goes blue as well. So it looks like so far, at least, the Democrats are winning in some areas that they need to. They've overall had a net loss because Alaska flipped blue and then California flipped red and so did Colorado. So it doesn't look as if the Democratic Party is on track to retain the Senate majority, but of course, things can change. So we're going to go up across the red wall here, which is what I used to refer to this strip that separates the middle of the nation. And we're just going to go ahead and start. The GOP, will they win in North Dakota? Let's ask. It says my sources say no. Democrats are set to win in North Dakota. Very interesting. Moving over to South Dakota. This was actually competitive, not the Senate race, but the governor's race was competitive back in 2018, but obviously not now. And also the Senate race was never really competitive. I think the last time there was a Democrat from the state of South Dakota was 2010, and then the Democrat was ousted in that red wave year. So Kansas becomes, actually on this exact Senate map, Kansas becomes a safe red state as expected. We're going to split up Oklahoma. We're going to say Oklahoma regular, and then we're going to say special election. So will the Republicans win in Oklahoma? So at large, yes. Will they win in the Oklahoma special election? Oops, I misspelled Oklahoma. Let's go ahead and Oklahoma. Let's go ahead and shake again. Let's see what the answer is. And the results say signs point to yes. So it looks like the Senate race actually might be slightly less competitive then the special election might be slightly less competitive than the general election, according to this. Obviously, I hope I'm spelling Louisiana correctly. I believe I am. But let's go to move over to Abe Lincoln, which is what I used to refer to this part of the United States that somehow I remember from elementary school being taught as in the Louisiana. I'm not going to change the rating, but I am going to go ahead and fix that for the future. That's going to go lean just because it says you may rely on it. It's sort of not indicating that we should rely on it or should predict on it whatsoever. We're actually moving faster than I expected. I thought this was going to take and do this pretty consistently throughout the Senate map. But thus far, it says Republicans are going to win in the state of Arkansas. Let's move over to the state of Missouri. I remember a lot of discussion here about Eric Greitens. He is the former governor from the state. Signs point to yes. So that seems to be a solid indication that Republicans are going to win in the state of Missouri. Moving over to Iowa, Chuck Grassley's seat. Wouldn't be surprised if this is a yes, but again, it's a magic 8 ball. You may rely on it. I don't know why it's giving me these weird characterizations, but so far, the only real mess-ups here on the map, unrealistic mess-ups, are California, Arkansas, and North Dakota. Beyond that, it's not necessarily realistic with Michael Bennet as the incumbent, but a Republican certainly could win in Colorado in the future. Democrats lost in Virginia in the governor's race there, the lieutenant governor's race, the attorney general's race with a 3-term incumbent. I mean, what you found was that Democrats have lost states that were just as lopsided in favor of Biden back in 2020, but I don't think it's likely for 2022, but that's not really out of the ordinary. So the only real out of the ordinary ones thus far, with about 16 remaining races, less than half actually, California, Alaska, North Dakota, and that's it. While the ratings obviously I don't agree with in the state of Louisiana or Iowa, I do think that the correct winner is overall predicted. So let's move over to the state of Indiana. I don't want to change the Republican characterization just right yet. Then we'll move over to Wisconsin, then move down to Illinois. It is certain that Republicans will win in Indiana. Not really shocking whatsoever. I believe that is Todd Young's seat. Republicans in Wisconsin. This is a close race. Ron Johnson says outlook not so good. So I'm going to keep that as a likely Democratic state. Not Republican, but Democratic state. We're going to go ahead and switch this over. Will the Democrats win the Senate race in Illinois? Let's go ahead and ask the magic 8 ball here to see what it says. So far, it says without a doubt. So that's not really that shocking. Democrats at 45, Republicans at 42. In terms of overall losses, Democrats have picked up in North Dakota, picked up in Wisconsin, but lost in California, Colorado, but picked up in Alaska. So now, actually, somehow, the Democrats are poised to win control of the U.S. Senate. Looking at Utah, I don't know how I would characterize it. I really think Evan McClellan will ultimately caucus with the GOP. His point is to get Mike Lee out and a more traditional conservative Republican in rather than get a Democrat in. Obviously, he would have ran as a Democrat. He's a former Republican, worked in the CIA. I mean, he pretty much has all these credentials back from the 2016 presidential election where he switched political parties. It's going to be very hard to see how he switches to the Democrats in terms of the caucus. I can almost guarantee, should he win that Senate race, he will choose the Republicans over the Democrats. Moving over to the state of Kentucky, let's go ahead and see, will the Republicans win in Kentucky? I don't think there's been a Democratic senator in quite some time. Will Republicans win the Senate race in Kentucky? Let's see, this is Rand Paul seat, not Mitch McConnell. Ask again later. So we're going to ask again now, not later, and see what the results are, without a doubt. So, safe red, I'm not really shocked by a lot of these results thus far. It's somehow getting itself to be mildly accurate, even more than some ratings that I've seen. The state of Alabama is a yes, definitely. I don't think that should be shocking to too many people. Let's move over to South Carolina, then down to Florida, and then we're going to actually switch to the Democrats in Georgia, then back to the GOP in the state of North Carolina. So that is South Carolina. Outlook good. I'm going to characterize that as, let me think. What did I previously do an outlook on? It might be likely red. It might be safe. I'm sorry. Again, I'm not remembering everything fully all too well together, but we're going to go ahead and characterize that as likely red. For the state of Florida, this is not necessarily a toss-up race, but I would say a lean characterization probably undersells the ability for the Republicans. But again, we are working with a magic 8 ball. I have to remind myself that this is not at all a logical or realistic prediction. So while I am trying to bring a sense of realism to it, it obviously is entirely unrealistic and unfounded by the end of this map. So will Democrats win the Senate race in Georgia? This is Raphael Warnock's seat. I personally do not think so, and it says Democrats will most likely. I guess it's going to directly contradict me right in front of you guys. So Georgia becomes a likely blue state, and that puts us at 46-46. So we're back to a tie with the remaining states: New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and North Carolina. So let's head up to the state of North Carolina. Will Republicans win the Senate race in North Carolina? I'm actually heading down to North Carolina today around 8 p.m. American Airlines. If you were interested in my most recent video, American Airlines canceled my flight yesterday. Now I'm going down to Charlotte because I needed to redirect my flight because they completely canceled the wrong one. I couldn't get back to Ronald Reagan, and now I practically got stranded, but luckily they fixed it for me after an hour and 30 minutes on the wait time. So The state of North Carolina, we're getting an ask again later. I'm going to ask again now if you wouldn't mind giving me the answer, especially since I'm going there. Outlook not so good for the GOP. So it looks as if the Democrats might actually win by a likely margin. So that is a likely blue state. Let's move over to the state of Ohio. Democrats getting a lot of last-minute victories that they really needed. Obviously, again, unrealistic, but I just wanted to say Democrats at 47 at this point means they more than definitely have the Senate majority. And also it says, oh, that's Republicans here. Let's see if the answer changes. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll give me the right answer. Let's see. Most likely Republicans will win in the state of Ohio. I think since it has the word likely, I'm just going to stick with the likely characterization. Will Republicans win the Senate race in the state of Pennsylvania? And from here on out, Pennsylvania, hopefully that is correct. It's not correcting me on my grammar there, my spelling. So without a doubt, Republicans will win in Pennsylvania. I guess John Fetterman ends up losing to Dr. Oz by a pretty considerable margin, if you ask me, with some surprises from Sherry Beasley in North Carolina. And I think is it Mandela Barnes in the state of Wisconsin? Or maybe it's another frontrunner Democrat, but I need to go ahead and head over to the Democratic primary in Wisconsin after this video and get a little bit more updated. So we're down to about 5 toss-up races between Democrats and Republicans, traditionally Democratic states, but again, this is all up to chance. So we're going to go ahead and characterize Republicans can resurge. They're 2 seats away from an electoral victory in the United States Senate, but if this was a realistic map, obviously the Democrats would be poised to maintain control of the Senate. But New York, it says, will Democrats win control? Signs point to yes. So I'm going to characterize that as a safe blue state. Moving over, now Democrats are tied. Connecticut. Let's see, will Democrats win the Senate race in the state of Connecticut? Let's go ahead and check it out. The results say, my sources say no. So Republicans are now 2 seats away from a majority, so they're going to need to get some strong last-minute victories. There's an open race in Vermont. Let's see what the results say. And in this state, Democrats will win in the state of Vermont. So it's getting neck and neck here. Democrats truly only need one more state in order to retain their electoral or Senate majority. Maryland might come in clutch for the Democrats. Let's see here. Yes, definitely. So Democrats will retain control according to the Magic 8 Ball. I want you to actually take a look at this map for a moment and see that it actually isn't that unrealistic. Obviously, a red California and a blue North Dakota, completely unrealistic, but to see maybe Pennsylvania red, Ohio red, Iowa red, Florida red, and Georgia blue, Arizona blue, Nevada blue, not too far out of the question. The final state is a toss-up race, so maybe this will be a determining factor, but we'll see if the Democrats do expand their majority or if it remains back to 50-50, and it does. Outlook not so good. So somehow, with the Magic 8 Ball's help, we have ended up in a position where the Republicans are at 50 seats and the Democrats are also at 50 seats. The Democrats lose the state of Colorado. They lose the state of California. They win in the state of North Dakota. They win in Alaska. That pretty much equalizes it out on the western side of the United States. On the Democrats, on the other hand, well, they have lost in the state of Connecticut. They've lost in the state of Pennsylvania, which is a red state, but still a loss. Democrats win in North Carolina. They win in Wisconsin, but they lose in the state of New Hampshire. So overall, the final map here averages out to about a Democratic Party with an equal standing to where they were in the most recent map. So obviously, this is not an outcome that the Democratic Party would want, and obviously this is an unrealistic outcome. But the fact that we're down to 50-50 is also quite surprising. Maybe it's something with the 8-ball algorithm about the way that it's going to be, but a 50-50 map with a completely randomized selective questions, obviously the same question, but 35 different states result us in the same exact map. I am a little bit interested to see actually how that happened, what type of algorithm went into the decision making, but obviously it could be entirely up to chance. So if this was up to chance, I think the Democratic Party would be partially happy and partially not. I think the Democrats overall come ahead with a net positive because they could imagine an incumbent winning re-election in Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, even states such as Alaska, which have elected Democrats in the U.S. Senate as recently as the 2000s. So Democrats do have a realistic shot at maintaining many of these states, obviously not North Dakota. I would say that one would go immediately 6 years from now. Republicans, on the other hand, probably wouldn't be too happy with this map because they're winning in Connecticut, but that's probably a no-brainer and pick up immediately for the Democrats next election cycle. Same thing for the state of California. Same thing with Colorado, but Colorado is a lot more realistic than I would say California and Connecticut, and I would say Republicans probably would be happy with that because incumbents typically do better than we've seen Republicans do on the national ballot. For instance, Cory Gardner in the U.S. Senate race back in 2020 outperformed Donald Trump by about 5 to 6 points. In a closer presidential election in Colorado, Republicans could easily hold on to that seat. So with the final map here, 50-50, I hope this is not what you were expecting because that would make you a psychic, but I do think that there is something to be said about this 50-50 map and also just the fact that my most recent projection was 50-50 and somehow a Magic 8 Ball came to the same conclusion. Obviously different states, but maybe I'm a psychic. I don't know. Obviously I'm not, but I will say this is a quite interesting result and definitely shocked me to say the least. So Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Those are real ones, by the way. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.